Welcome back. Let's jump right into this. Cory, lead designer for World of Warcraft, held an interview. There has been some discussion about what was said, and we're going to talk about what he actually said versus what's being said that he said. In the background, you're seeing me playing inefficiently, purposely, one of the Apex crystal areas. There was a bonus weekend where more crystals were given, and I wanted to know, due to all the whining about the crystal grind, I wanted to know, how long does it actually take to do these? So that's why the inefficiency comes in, because this is the worst case scenario, in my opinion. So let's dive into this. What did Cory not say? He did not say that 6.2 was going to be the final content patch. Cory did say that Hellfire Citadel would be the last raid. Now, I can understand where for some people, last raid equals last content patch, but that's not the case because there's a lot more in the game than raiding. Cory also said that it was obvious, and it was obvious, that it was going to be the final raid due to the boss, what other boss would come after that. He also said that anything can happen between now and what is released next. He continued on to say that they're trying to shorten the time between expansions so that the number of major updates will be reduced because there's less time in between expansions. He said that 6.2.x will be the next patch, but he doesn't have any other information on future patches. Translation, he doesn't have any information that he can publicly release, in my opinion. He said that they base what content is going to be released on how players progress through the content. So if they see that players need more content before the next expansion and they need to release a patch, they will react and do so. So that in itself implies what I've said earlier and in previous videos, and that is that they're sitting on a bunch of content that they can do something with. Now, will there be another big patch? It's possible, and it could revolve around PvP fixes, because right now PvP is broken, and one thing that was missing from WatcherDib's Q&A was any PvP information because he's not the PvP guy. So it's very possible that some PvP content is going to be released. Right now, the problem with PvP, if you're unaware, is that it's very alliance heavy right now, meaning that many of the top rated players transferred and switched not only servers, but they switched factions, meaning that you're going to have very large wait queues for Alliance and win often, and Horde will have short queues and not win that much. Now, an argument can be made that Alliance loses a lot. So now it's Horde's turn. Before, there were certain battlegrounds that Alliance would lose. And now it's just like across the board. It's very Alliance dominated right now due to racials and whatnot. So PvP fixes could be that content patch that I don't want to say save the day because there's a lot of people that don't PvP, but that doesn't mean that it's okay to twist the words that someone said. So I just want to make it very clear that Cory did not say that 6.2 was going to be the final content patch. It doesn't make sense that it would be, because there has to be a patch that leads us into the expansion, whenever that is. Now, it's going to get to the point, because the content is being released on a faster schedule, that the announcement of the expansion will stop always being at BlizzCon. It'll probably start coming before BlizzCon, and then you can do a demo of it or more features about it, or it'll be discussed during BlizzCon. Simply because the timing would be off. They can't continue to maintain that timing. There's also a movie coming out. And one of the pacing of the content issues may be to try to align with certain features being in the game by the time or around the time that the movie is released. Now, one thing that Cory did say that was a huge faux pas was that 6.1 was a major content patch. The reason why this was a major faux pas, besides the fact that it wasn't, was that Watcher Dev had just said in an interview that it was a light patch and they probably shouldn't have even have called it 6.1. When Watcher Dev said this, he was taking accountability and responsibility as a company for releasing a light patch. And that helped resolve the bitterness that some players had because their intelligence wasn't being insulted. For Cory to come back and say what he did, saying that there were two big patches, 6.1 and 6.2, either he messed up and meant 6.2 and 6.3, or what he said though was 6.1, which wasn't a big content patch. Either way, he angered people. Understandably so, because it undid the progress that Watcher Dev had made. This is a symptom of the problem that has been going on since the beginning of this expansion. Since they've been working on it, really. The team is not on the same page when it comes to the direction of the content. And we've seen evidence of this recently with flying. They didn't come to a decision about flying until almost the very end. Now, I think they made the right decision by allowing flying to come back, at least as a compromise. But that doesn't change the fact that there's a large number of staff, according to what was said, that the majority did not want flying to come back. That is not on the same wavelength with the wants and the needs of their customers, the players. And that's a huge problem for companies. And this is something that they're going to have to fix. It would be best that the people that are not in line with the current goals and desires of their customers, because without customers, they have no job, are moved to another project or they get it together, one of the two. I'm not sure what caused this misalignment, but the fact that it's there is a huge problem. The reason why, in my opinion, that a lot of this content is late and the content patches are light is simply because they have been unable to agree on things. Things have been announced and taken away. We were led to believe one thing and it turned into another. That doesn't change the fact that when content was worked on and taken away, those man hours were spent. That's money that's not getting a return on its investment. Now, it's not like they need the money because they make a whole lot of money. But the end result is that both of us lose. They lose because customers are mad and unsubscribing, and we lose because we're not getting the content that we want to play and are willing to pay for. We're willing to pay. They're just not giving it to the player base. So, how do you fix this problem? Well, from a player standpoint, you can go play another game. But one of the reasons why I have this footage in the background is that there was a lot of whining and complaining about the Apexis crystal grind. But if you look at other games, their dungeon grind is no different than this, unless you just happen to prefer to do the grind in a dungeon. But it's the same thing. I could have done this area with a group. What's the difference? You're getting crystals instead of gear. But the crystals can be used to buy gear and other things and upgrades. With this, you're actually getting, you know how much you're going to get. With dungeons, you hope and pray that you get what you want. So which one is a more efficient use of time? It depends on what it is that you want to do. So to say that these grinds are unreasonable, I don't see them as unreasonable any more so than the grind for a dungeon. That's just my personal opinion. You will see at the end of the video how long it took me doing this in an inefficient way, like a noob, not knowing what I was doing, to do a worst case scenario. I mean, the worser case scenario would have been if I just screwed around and died. I just didn't feel like going that far. But in truth, dungeons can take a whole lot longer, and you get less return for your time than this Apexis crystal grind. So, as a player, yes, you can go to another game. And I suggest, if you are that angry or disgruntled or unhappy with the current content, that you leave. I would. I have. I've walked away from Eve after waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Maybe one day I'll go back when I see that the game has gone in a direction that I like. I miss it. And if you look in my archives, you will see me giddy happy. I love that game. But there's mechanics in it that just makes no sense to me. So I left. Because that's the only way to tell a developer or any business that you don't like what they're doing. If you continue to pay, what you're saying is that you don't mind that much. Because you're continuing to stay. Whether it's through tokens or paying money, obviously it's not bothering you that bad. But the reason why there was a change about flying was because people left. So if you want a change, you want to get their attention, leaving will do it with any company. Speak with your wallet. But staying and complaining does nothing. It doesn't, because in the end, whether you paid by a token or not, Blizzard got paid, didn't they? So you're not helping the situation at all. What other options are there? Well, Blizzard could rush out new content. That's not a good idea. They could take their time and just do an expansion. Most likely not. I mean, I hope they take their time with the expansion. But I think that the third option is that there's going to be some content prior to that to ramp up to the expansion. And if you were going to elude anything, it would be that very thing, because Cory said that they will keep up with the pace of how players go through the content. So it would be in our best interest to go through the content quick so that they would have to react to give us more content. You see what I'm saying? Now, whether it's content we want or not, that's a whole nother debate. But the key here is that Cory did not say that 6.2 was going to be the final content patch. So I'm going to put a link in the description below about so that you can hear the interview for yourself, and that you let me know, what do you think? Do I think that Blizzard was sloppy with this expansion? Absolutely. And I am not trying to sugarcoat what they did in any way. I have made that very clear. Just because many of the issues brought up does not apply to me, because I have tons of stuff to do in the game, that doesn't mean that there isn't a real issue. And there is a real issue. But there's no point in being a drama queen about it, because that doesn't win in the long run. So thank you for listening, and I will see you guys in the next one.